Interestingly, Ed Luce of the Financial Times, you've written a piece that is very nuanced, and you seem to suggest the risk is that all things China measure produces the opposite of what Biden wants, who had said democracy and human rights will be at the center of foreign policy. And you seem to suggest that the second problem with Biden's charm offensive is that it misreads how much India also needs America. The false impression is that India has all the cards. You want to expand on that? Do you really believe that this relationship that is now operating at multiple levels is only about China?
No, I don't think it's exclusive to China. China is the most important sort of driving element, particularly with the defense industry technology transfer we're seeing, which really is unprecedented. It's quite dramatic. I think China drives that. I guess America's impatience to see India reduce its reliance on Russian military supplies is also part of that motivation. But no, I don't think China is the whole thing. I think it's extremely important for the United States to develop closer economic and people-to-people ties with what is now the largest country in the world and the fastest growing big economy in the world. India this year and probably for the next 2 or 3 years is going to be growing faster than China, which we've never really seen in recent decades. So all of that is rational. I think the difficulty here is that Biden has set himself a measure of his foreign policy, which is it's all about democracy versus autocracy, and human rights is at the heart of his foreign policy agenda. And under Narendra Modi, we have seen democratic backsliding in India. There is nothing the United States can do about that. And in fact, anything it's likely to say about that would probably be counterproductive. But the fact that he is giving Modi the most glittering, not just any Indian leader, but Narendra Modi, the most glittering of receptions, by far the sort of most lavish state dinner so far of Biden's presidency, is I think going down badly in some quarters. It clashes very directly with the value statements that Biden has set out for himself at the beginning of his term. Whether the U.S. has as few cards in this India-U.S. relationship that it seems to be indicating that it has is, I think, also questionable. I think that China poses a more direct and immediate threat to India than it does to the United States. India needs this defense cooperation. It needs the Quad, just as America needs the Quad, but I think India needs it more. So I think that Biden is bending over too far backwards for Modi, and I'm not sure that he needs to.
Let's now look at this from taking off from something that Ed Luce there said. India as an emerging economy, India as growing faster at the moment than China at the moment, even though China a much bigger economy. Where does that, has India's time come? Arun Singh, former envoy to the United States, joins us. Mr. Singh, we are seeing these slew of deals that are being signed today between India and the United States, from jet engines to semiconductors, including transfer of critical technologies. We're seeing the kind of red carpet welcome that the Prime Minister has been given. Does this make the Biden-Modi dialogue that's taking place some ways qualitatively different from what we've seen between any two Indian and American principals in the past?
So I think the big takeaway is that this is a follow-up to the major initiative that Prime Minister Modi and President Biden had launched in May last year, which was followed by the two national security advisors in January this year. This is the initiative on critical and emerging technologies. And this partnership in artificial intelligence, quantum, semiconductors, commercialization of space, defense, it has now become the organizing framework for the relationship at this stage. So building on what was done since the Civil Nuclear Cooperation Agreement was signed, the two countries are now poised to take the relationship to another level of technology partnerships. And that's why you're seeing now the announcement related to semiconductors. You're seeing announcements related to GE being authorized now to move ahead with doing transfer of technology and production in India. And this is something that had never happened before. In fact, in 2014, some conversation had started on this, and the US government at that stage had stopped it. But so now it is a signal that there is a growing confidence in the relationship. And as you saw in the Prime Minister's interview to one of the newspapers, he said now there is a lot of trust between the leaders of the two countries. So growing confidence, growing convergence of interest, and then therefore willing to partner at even higher levels of technology.
Can I though raise one question, Daniel Block, that, the diaspora, many believe that what we are seeing today, and we saw them all over the White House lawns cheering the Prime Minister when he was there, is that diaspora the other big change that we've seen in this visit? The real influence of that diaspora is now telling right across sectors in the United States. When you have Indian Americans who are leading various American corporations, top Indian doctors doing remarkably well across the United States, that diaspora effect also shaping the relationship?
I think the diaspora is in some ways impacting the relationship. The diaspora is obviously very powerful. It's one of the wealthiest diasporas in the United States, and it has by and large been vocally quite supportive of Modi. Having said that, at the same time, I would say that in recent years that's been counteracted to some effect by progressive groups that are increasingly critical of the Prime Minister, are openly urging the Biden administration to take a harder line against India, or at least, as Edward Luce was saying, to praise the Modi government less. And I think it's worth noting that that includes actors within the diaspora. There's a tendency to paint the Indian diaspora as a monolith. It's not. You have activist groups within the diaspora that have been protesting the Prime Minister, that are telling the Biden administration they don't want him to come at all. These are very much a minority within the diaspora, but they do have cachet and currency within the left flank of the Democratic Party. And I think they're part of why you see a couple of Congress people boycotting the Prime Minister's address, signing letters of concern. And those groups do have power within the Biden administration, at least. So to answer it in short, yes, I do think it's a part of the growing relationship and the increasingly strong relationship between India and the United States. By and large, it does support Modi, and so it is helping bolster those ties. But I think that there is pushback, and some of the broader progressive pushback within the United States matters as well. It's harder for Biden to sell kind of a message of an uninhibited, deep, and values-based relationship between India and the United States, rather than one that's just strategic. The more opposition he faces from other members of the Democratic Party, and that's a real force. It's one that comes from developments that are happening within India. I don't think that it's necessarily a sign of strength, as one of the earlier panelists put in, and I think it's worth paying attention to that as well as we think about how the Indian-United States relationship is going to shape out over the years to come.